You were expecting Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, I assume? We're going to get to him, but first we need to learn the laws of Shavuos. Shavuos is one of the three significant pilgrimage holidays. It's the second to last, it's the middle one. Pesach is the first, followed by Shavuos, followed by Sukkot. And tonight I'd like to review a little bit of the laws. It is the one that seems to have the fewest laws and the fewest requirements. Pesach we prepare for a whole month ahead of time, just learning the laws, not to mention the cleaning and the making and the doing. From the end of, at the very latest, from the end of Yom Kippur, we have 5 days to get our sukkah up, but we generally learn the laws of sukkah really early on in preparation for that. Shavuos, it seems we don't do it, although we could argue that we start preparing for Shavuos on the second night of Pesach, which is the beginning of the counting of the Omer. So I'm going to read some questions and some answers. Right? Which customs are practiced on Shavuos? The following are widely accepted customs. Marav does not begin until nightfall. So you can't, unlike Shabbos, you can't bring Shavuos in early, right? In the middle of the summer. Shavuos always comes in the middle of the summer. And people are tempted to bring Shabbos in early, but you don't do that with Yom Tovs, and especially not with Shavuos. Men stay up all night to study Torah. Some women do as well. Flowers and greenery are placed in shuls and homes. This is not true of all shuls, but in many shuls. Dairy foods are served. The Book of Ruth is read in shul, Book of Ruth, although there are some shuls where they also don't require reading the Book of Ruth in shul, some Hasidic shuls. Why is Marav delayed until nightfall? In reference to the mitzvah of counting the Omer, the Torah states that there should be 7 complete weeks. If one were to daven Marav early on the eve of Shavuos, he would cut short the last day of the Omer, making it incomplete, and of course the Omer has to be complete. Does this apply in Chutz La'aretz, outside of Israel? In Chutz La'aretz, outside of Israel, some communities daven Marav early due to the extremely late hour of nightfall. In this situation, one should try to delay the recital of Kiddush until nightfall, or at least until sunset, if possible. See also the guidelines in Tefillah, Volume 2. That's a general conversation about whether you can bring Yom Tovs in early. Should women delay lighting candles until nightfall? No, they should preferably light them before sunset on Erev Shabbos. However, when Shavuos is on Sunday, the lights must not be kindled until after nightfall, which is after Havdalah, which is the case this year, by the way.
Yeah, because it's Sunday, isn't it?
Right. Why do men study Torah all night? When Hashem was about to give the Torah to the Jewish people on the morning of Shavuos, they had not yet woken up from their night's sleep. They were suddenly awoken by a fearful noise of thunder and lightning. Moshe Rabbeinu announced that the Chassan is waiting for the Kala to come to the Chuppah. The Chassan is Hashem, the Kala is Klal Yisrael, the Chuppah is Har Sinai, Mount Sinai. In order to rectify this shortcoming, men have a custom to remain awake all night to study and become worthy to receive the precious gifts of Torah. Do women have this custom? No, they don't. But there are many women who do stay up and learn as well. By the way, every night is a good night for learning Torah. Right? It's just especially good this night. And the consequence of this, by the way, we'll come to it later, I'm sure, is that there are some very early minions for Shacharis. So if you've been learning all night, around 5 in the morning, whatever, let's see what it says here. The early minyan here is at 4:45 a.m. They'll be saying Shacharis at the Thornhill Community Shul, and then people will go to bed and eat later. Different places have different views of this. Some go to bed after sunrise and then wake up and have a late Shacharis as well. Why are flowers and greenery placed in the shuls and the houses? As a reminder of the flowers and the greenery that decorated Har Sinai when the Torah is given. Some have a custom to place trees as a reminder that on Shavuot, Hashem passes judgment on the coming year's crop of fruits. Shavuot is a new year, right? So the most famous new year we have, of course, is Rosh Hashanah. There's another new year that comes at the beginning of Nisan. It's the New Year of Kings. And there is a new year that comes with Shavuot, which is the new year for fruits, tree fruits. And the trees are judged for the quality of their fruit, and we are judged for the quality of the tree's fruits. But fruits, we should always have in mind, have many meanings. So, for instance, a person's child is their fruit. He ripens with age. A person's learning is the fruit of his effort. So we often think that Rosh Hashanah is a time that we're really judged for the physicality of this world. Who will live and who will die? Who will be rich and who will be poor? Who will be sick and who will be well? Who will wander and who will find comfort? Many of these things are good. But what's missing is who will have great reward and depth of Torah. The reason is because that's what happens on this night, on Shavuos, right? On Shavuos, Hashem judges us for the ruchnius, for the spirituality, for the fruits of our learning, really, is what goes on. Is this a universal custom to put the flowers in the greenery? And no, the custom is more widespread in Chutz La'aretz than it is in Eretz Yisrael. Some opinions disapprove of the custom to place trees, claiming that it resembles the religious practices of other nations. It's a good point, because we're told to cut down the Asherah trees, because the trees were used for idol worship in Eretz Yisrael. When Joshua came into Eretz Yisrael, one of the requirements was to cut it down. And if you notice, the Beis Mikdash, which was one of the most beautiful of all buildings, right? We don't talk about greenery. We talk about gold and silver, marble, all kinds of beautiful materials. No trees. And the reason is because trees were used as idol worship. Many nations, the idea, by the way, there's an expression which comes from this, is, you may be familiar with it, when people want something to come true, or they're worried it won't come true, they use the expression, knock on wood. Right? This actually comes from awakening the god of the tree. That's where it comes from. It comes from Nordic religions, where they believed that there were gods within the trees, and you knock on the tree, and so we should be careful about using that expression, consequently. Why are dairy foods served? Among the numerous reasons are the following. After receiving the Torah, the Jewish people realized that the preparation of meat involved many complications, and that their pots were treif, since they had been used for cooking non-kosher meat. Therefore, they ate only dairy foods which needed very little preparation. It's cold. Meat is a question of shechting the animal. There's a question of salting the food. There's a question of cooking it and how the pots are used for cooking it. It's much more complicated than eating kosher dairy foods. Also, the Torah is compared to milk, as it states, the sweetness of Torah drops from your lips like honey and milk under your tongue. That's from Shir Shirim. And it's a very important concept also that milk is a food that the animal can give without death. Right? We've talked about this before, that meat is the ultimate din, the ultimate judgment. It's a harsh judgment. That for a cow to become a steak, he has to give up his life, right? Or her life. For a cow to give up its milk, well, actually that relieves stress for the cow. It wants to give up its milk, in fact, right? And milk we associate with the nourishment of the most innocent of children. And we associate Torah with nourishment. When Moshe Rabbeinu was a baby and was rescued from the Nile River, he refused to nurse from the milk of any woman except his ima, his mama. Since this event occurred on the day of Shavuos, we commemorate it by eating dairy. This event of not having milk from the maidservants of Paro. Shouldn't one eat meat on Yom Tov? There is a mitzvah to eat meat on Yom Tov in order to fulfill the commandment to be joyful, as it says, and you shall rejoice on your festival. Ideally, one should eat meat meals both at night and the day. In order to comply with the custom to eat dairy, many people serve cheesecake at Kiddush on Shavuot morning, or at least eat dairy late in the afternoon. By the way, if meat does not give you joy, there's an argument made that, especially if it makes you uncomfortable, that it would be better not to eat meat, because certainly the goal is not to make your Yom Tov unpleasant. So we have that in mind. How much cake must be eaten at Kiddush? In order to fulfill the mitzvah of Kiddush, one must eat an amount that requires the bracha achrona, the final blessing, of al mechia. With cheesecake, only the crust is included in the amount, and since this is usually thin, it is recommended to also eat a different type of cake. So have in mind, either you're going to have to eat a lot of cheesecake, and I know that's a tough job for most people watching it, eating a lot of cheesecake, but it seems that is a requirement of Shavuos, lots of cheesecake. Right? You could probably fulfill it eating ice cream in a cone, too, because you want to fulfill this mitzvah, and you got to make the effort,
Make the effort difficult.
Hey, let's be glad that they weren't eating spinach at this point.
Yeah.
No offense to the spinach lovers.
Yeah.
May one serve dairy followed by meat at the same meal. Strictly speaking, this is permitted if all these conditions are fulfilled before serving the meat. Listen carefully. The tablecloth is changed so that there are no crumbs, even from bread that was part of the meat meal, on the table. Right?
You mean the dairy milk?
From the dairy bread. That's right. A different loaf of bread is brought to the table. Incidentally, this commemorates the two breads brought on Shavuot in the Holy Temple. One must have a food and a drink in order to clean the mouth. So you're actually washing the milk, preferably with some bread, right? Or matzah, something that cleans the mouth out. And then you're washing it with water, or some might do it with wine, I guess. One must wash his hands in case particles of dairy food are on them. According to the Zohar, one must also separate the dairy and meat foods with benching and a waiting period of a half hour. Most hold that you should not eat dairy and meat in the same meal. So one of the things that defines the end of the meal is benching. Mm-hmm. So it's strongly recommended that one bench between the two. Note, the above applies only to dairy foods made from soft cheese. After eating certain types of hard cheese, one does have to wait for 6 hours before eating meat. But we're talking mostly about cream cheese here, I guess. Mm-hmm. Why is the book of Ruth read on this day? Among the many reasons are the following. The book records the genealogy of David HaMelech, King David, who descended from Ruth. It is read on Shavuot because on that day, Shavuot, David HaMelech was born, and 70 years later, David HaMelech died on Shavuot. Ruth was a convert to Judaism, as was the entire nation when the Torah was given. It's a very important thing to understand, is that, for instance, we have a mitzvah of bris milah, of circumcision, right? And it's recorded in the book of Bereshit that Avraham was commanded by God to be perfect and walk with him and to give himself a bris, and all the male members of his household. So we have a bris. So when we give a child the bris today, is it because Avraham Avinu gave a bris to himself and to all the male members of his household? The answer is no. We have a bris because we're commanded to have a bris through Har Sinai. So all the things that were given before are not in conflict, but our requirements to fulfill mitzvahs comes from Har Sinai. That's where it dates from. And at Har Sinai, we all became Jews. Those who had been keeping mitzvahs and those who had not been keeping mitzvahs, those who were Gerim, those who were from the Erev Rav. All those who stood at Sinai went through a conversion at that point. So Rus was a convert. And also the Jewish people received 606 new mitzvahs of the 613, in addition to the 7 laws of Noah that they had previously been obligated to keep. The numerical value of Rus is 606. Rus underwent much suffering before becoming the mother of the Jewish royal family. This teaches the lesson that one must be prepared to undergo difficulties to acquire Torah. Those are all the reasons we're reading Rus on this day. Must the congregation hear every word? Ideally, they should listen to every word. However, even if a person did not hear every word, nothing need be done. This is unlike Purim, when there's an obligation on each individual to hear every word of Megillah Esther. What if one is unable to attend shul? He does not need to read Rus himself. Should one stand for Aseret Dibros? Because we read the 10 Commandments on Shavuot. According to some opinions, one should not show more honor to one section of the Torah than to another, since every word is equally holy and important. Nevertheless, the widespread custom is to stand for Aseret Dibros, as did the Jewish nation at Har Sinai, and to demonstrate that these are the fundamental principles of the Torah. In any event, one should always follow the local custom. What's going on in your shul? If they're not standing, you don't stand. If they are standing, you should stand. And by the way, there are some people who stand for every Torah reading. If you look around your shul, you'll see always there's a few people who will stand from the beginning of Torah reading to the end of Torah reading every week. Staying awake all night. Are men obligated to study Torah all night? There's no obligation, but the custom is so widespread that men should make an effort to study all night. The Arizal said that whoever studies all night and does not sleep for a moment is assured that he will live out the year and not come to any harm during the next year. This is a complicated subject.
Yeah, I was just wondering,
I don't particularly want to get into, except to say that living the whole year has many different meanings, in this world and in the next. This is what the Arizal said. And he is the great definer of Kabbalah for us. Which parts of the Torah should be studied? There are two main customs. Some study an area that interests them, whether Tanakh, Mishnah, Gemara, Halacha, or any other Torah topic. Others recite a fixed text known as the Tikkun, Leil Shavuos, the night of Shavuos, which contains short extracts from the written and oral sections of the Torah. Each person should do whatever he feels will maintain his interest throughout the night, so that he can utilize every moment and not waste precious time with idle talk. A person who has no preference should follow his family custom if he has one. So, for instance, by the way, I have here, and many shuls have schedules like this, where starting at 12:10 at night at this shul, which is the Thornhill Community Shul, but it's similar to Dubai, it's similar to many Jews. They begin with The Time Machine, a fascinating look at defying nature by Rabbi Goldwasser. Then they're going to Dairy Delights will join us for lasagna, salad, and cheesecake at 1:15 in the morning, followed by lectures on Rambam, Derech Hashem, the way of God, which is the Ramchal, a Talmud class, the Garden of Emunah, which is Breslov, the Great Debate, an extensive Talmudic explanation of the excommunication of Rav Eliezer, Living Godly in 2012, the Tomer Devorah by Dr. Michael Kurzner. So that's there. Then at 3 o'clock there's another 6 classes. At 4 o'clock there's 2 more classes, one of which is called Sleeping Through Matan Torah. Now that you got it, what are you going to do with it? And then Rav Rothman, the Rav of the Shul in the main sanctuary until Shachris, will be teaching that. Then Shachris is going to be at 6:36 in the morning. So many shuls have multiple lectures going on. Some don't. I think, for instance, I don't think Chabad has a tradition to do that. They just sit and they read the Tikkun. Right? And the Tikkun is usually about 3 paragraphs of, for instance, each of the Parshas. 3 paragraphs from each of the Masechtas of Gemara and Mishnah. There's different Tikkuns. Some have pieces of Kabbalah, of Zohar in it as well. So that's the tradition of staying awake. Coffee is very good on this night. I recommend it. And by the way, it's easier to teach than it is to learn on this night. Although I think I have a memory of my favorite, Shavuos, night of Shavuos, when I stayed awake all night. I was at a place called the Tammy Latner Center, and Rabbi Breitowitz decided to do all 613 mitzvahs from beginning to end. Yeah, and he started, at Hatzos, right, and went until sunrise. No. And at sunrise he finished 613th mitzvah. Right? It was an amazing night. I have to. We weren't in depth, of course. You can figure out.
Yeah.
Still, it was a very. I still remember it. It must have been 15, 17 years ago. Okay.
That's cool.
So you should do. A person should follow his family custom. Okay. Until what time should one remain awake? If possible, until dawn. The custom is to daven Shacharis after the study session, according to the time of Vasikin, which is dawn davening. It's a very powerful moment in Eretz Yisrael as the sun comes. They begin davening, and they get very often to Shema or Shemona Esrei as the sun is coming over the Kosel, and it's a very, it's very special. Why do some men go to the mikveh before Shacharis? This is a custom mentioned in Kabbalistic writings and is considered to be a fitting conclusion to the session of Torah learning of night. Until what time may one eat and drink? Until a half hour before dawn, all foods and drinks are permitted. During the half hour before dawn, one may not begin to eat more than a kibetza of bread or mazonas, but may have drinks in the foods, like coffee. If he began to eat bread or mazonas before this half hour, he may continue until halachic dawn. From dawn, all foods and most drinks are forbidden. However, one may drink water, tea, or coffee in order to daven with more concentration. One may add milk or sugar or tea to the coffee. Should one wash negelwasser in the morning? Yes, after dawn, he should wash negelwasser. Should he wash immediately at dawn? No, he should wait until he is ready to daven Shacharis. Just before Shacharis, you should daven negelwasser. Should he recite the brachas of Nitilas Yadayim and Asher Yitzhar? Preferably, he should use the washroom, wash negelwasser, recite the brachas of Al Nitilas Yadayim and Asher Yitzhar. If he has no need to use the bathroom, he may not recite the brachas of Al Nitilas Yadayim or Asher Yitzhar. If possible, he should listen to another person who is reciting these brachas and have in mind to be included. Should he recite the bracha of Elohai Neshama? No, if possible, he should listen to another person who is reciting this bracha and have in mind to be included. Should he recite the Birchas HaTorah, the blessings that one says before learning Torah? If he slept for at least a half hour during the previous day, he should recite these blessings. If he did not sleep for a half hour during the previous day, he should not recite Birchas HaTorah. If possible, he should listen to another person who is reciting these brachas and have in mind to be included. When doing this, he should answer amen to the 2 brachas that immediately say Birchas HaKohanim and the paragraph of Elud Devarim. Care should be taken not to answer amen after Asok B'Dvei Torah. We'll get to that later.
No.
What if he cannot find another person to listen to when reciting the brachas of Havas Rabbah and Shacharis? He should have in mind to fulfill through the mitzvah of Birchas HaTorah, and immediately after Shacharis he should say some words of Torah. What if he forgot to have this in mind while reciting a Havas Rabbah? It can nevertheless be regarded that he said Birchas HaTorah, and he should say some words of Torah immediately after Shacharis. Should he recite all the morning brachas? He should say morning brachas except the last one, Ha'amavir Shena, and the following, Vayihi Ratzon. If possible, he should listen to another person who is reciting the bracha and have in mind to be included. We're assuming this is other person, somebody who slept. When doing this, he should answer Amen after the words Mo Yisrael, but not after the words Usnuma Ma'afapai, since this is one long bracha. Do the above laws apply to a person who slept for a short time during the night? If he slept for less than a half hour, he should follow the above rules. If he slept for half an hour between halachic midnight and dawn, he should recite all the morning brachas as usual, and probably somebody else will be listening to him and saying Amen.
Yeah.
If he slept for a half hour before midnight, he should follow the above laws regarding Al Netilas Yadayim, Asher Yitzar, Brachas Elohei Neshama, Birchas HaTorah, Hama'avir Shena, should be recited as usual. What if he fell asleep at the table or in an armchair? Even if he slept for a half hour or more, this is not considered to be a proper form of sleep. And he should follow the above laws for a person who did not sleep. So if you're nodding off while you're learning, which happens, nobody should be insulted, then you're not considered to have slept. What if he slept on a bed while wearing his clothes? If his intention was to sleep for several hours, this is considered proper sleep, and he should recite all the morning brachas as usual. If he lay down for a short nap, this is not considered to be a proper form of sleep, even if he slept for several hours. In this case, he should follow the laws of a person who did not sleep. But he should think this one through, I think, before he lies down. Once you lie down on the bed, I think you've given up at that point. What if one person is too tired to daven properly at daybreak? A man who remains awake all night must be extremely careful to daven with proper concentration and to avoid the temptation to drowse. Particular attention is required during Hallel, since the omission of even one word invalidates the mitzvah. If he is too tired to daven properly, he should go to bed for a few hours. I'm yawning. He should go to bed for a few hours and daven at a later minyan. Sometimes their minyans quite late, like 10 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock in the morning even. However, this is only permitted if he arranges for someone who will remain awake to wake him in time for Shacharis. So, for instance, if you're planning to stay up very late, and your wife is not, then you can say, look, I'm probably going to go to sleep at about 5 in the morning. Make sure you wake me at 9 o'clock so I can get to Shacharis. You'll get 4 hours. It's better than none at that point. Right? Is this arrangement necessary if he goes to sleep before dawn? It is necessary if he goes to a bed within a half hour of halachic dawn, but not earlier. What if he cannot find someone to wake him later? He should recite Birchas Torah and Shema after dawn, and he may go to sleep. Care should be taken to arise in time to daven Shacharis. Should he recite bedtime Shema? If he goes to sleep before dawn and estimates that he will fall asleep before dawn, he should recite the entire bedtime Shema as usual. If he estimates that he will not fall asleep before dawn, or if he goes to bed after dawn, he must not recite the bracha Hamapil. The other sections may be said if he wishes. Should one say any of the bedtime Shema if he goes to sleep during the day? The bracha Hamapil must not be recited. It's praiseworthy to say Vayihi Noam and Psalm 91. No other sections need be said. Should one say Modeh Ani after waking from a daytime sleep? No. So if you take a nap in the middle of the day, you don't say Modeh Ani. Should one wash Negel Vaser after a daytime sleep? Yes, if he slept for a half hour or more. Should any morning bracha be repeated after a daytime sleep? No. Should men stay awake on the night of Yom Tov Sheni of Shavuot? The custom is not to do so, so it's only one night. You don't have to do it 2 nights in a row. Nevertheless, they should make an effort to study some Torah after the evening meal. I think that is it. That's it for the laws of Shavuos. There aren't very many, right? And most of them are customs.
Yeah, custom dealing with what prayers, depending on what you did.
That's right.
Or failed to do, you could say.
And Shavuos has another unique quality, which I think we've mentioned in other shirs, and that is that unlike Pesach and Sukkot, which are determined by when Rosh Chodesh is of that month, and consequently in places where the outriders couldn't arrive in time to say this is the date of the Hag, Jews would keep 2 days of a Hag, because maybe Rosh Chodesh was this day or maybe Rosh Chodesh was that day. But that's not true of Sukkot, because Sukkot is determined not by the Rosh Chodesh of Sivan. It falls on the 6th of Sivan. It's actually determined by the Rosh Chodesh of Nisan. Not even Iyar, but Nisan, way back Nisan. Why? Because Rosh Chodesh Nisan determines when is Pesach.
And then you count the 50 days.
And then we count 50 days from the second day of Pesach. Right? And that's the Omer. And then no matter what happens in between, on that 50th day, we know for sure that is Shavuot. Right? So why 2 days of Shavuot?
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense, since we're not concerned about the Rosh Chodesh of any of those. The reason is out of respect to Shavuos and to avoid complications, that all of the 3 Shalosh Regalim, the 3 legs of the year, a tripod stands on 3 legs. If a tripod stands on 2 legs, the camera falls down. It stands on 3 legs. And so we say the year is called Shalosh Regalim, 3 legs, right? And on these 3 legs you come to Jerusalem to observe the holiday. Many people never left Jerusalem. They came for Pesach, they spent 7 weeks in Yerushalayim, and then bang, it was Shavuos. And in those days, they were there, they were partying, they were having a great time. It was a great time of learning, of Torah, the growth of Torah, in which we were celebrating our physical exodus from Mitzrayim. And at the end of those 50 days, the purpose of that physical exodus from Mitzrayim was to receive the Torah. And that happens on that 50th day. So we know when it is, but out of respect, the Shavuot should be shortchanged relative to the other holidays. Outside of Israel, Shavuot is also 2 days. Inside of Israel, all of these are actually 1-day holidays.